again, Dr. Kenneth Niles, in your house, in your car, wherever you are. I'm there. I know you just touched the triangle, and so plays on. So again, good to have you. And I am sure that you would have been quite titillated and excited and maybe have some questions from last week as we looked at perspectives of family dynamics, understanding that that represents the whole issue of interactions and communication and the whole issue of human development within the concept of the family as interpreted in terms of people coming together in one space to identify their belief systems and their cultures and traditions. We looked last session on the whole concept of generational and imaginative, looking at the fact that we have come through the aunties and the grannies and the great-grannies and what they represented and how it affected us and how it was necessary for us to identify imagination in terms of our children. Something I failed to talk about last time, I want to push this in here a little bit before we go forward. You know, in my time, and I'm speaking for me personally, adults would tell children, go in the room, go, this is big people talk. So we were never taught how to talk big people talk. But yet, we were expected to have a big people talk years later, hoping that we would imagine it. But you can't, or there will be that concept of assumption. So it's important for us to realize that there's a lot of things that we are now assuming in our parenting and in our living that we didn't have to assume if we were taught. Now the other thing about that is that when I remember me being sent into my room so that I could be not involved with the big talk, I had my own talk. And there's where the child became very imaginative. We will have tables or the pillows or shoes, and we all give them names. And we'll have school, and we'll have a little whip, shut up, and we'll be talking to the children, you, Dick, and we give them names. We had imagination at that age, 5, 6, because I created a whole classroom. I created a whole playroom with people who were not there. Call names, because I had things in my brain and I would be going through and calling and talking about this. You know, I would realize, and I would say this outrightly, that I may have had a greater conversation and much more meaningful than my parents would have had with their big talk. Because when children get together, they can find meaningful interaction. But we need to allow them to imagine. And those are one of the things I think is important for some of us who have become very articulate, very thoughtful, very interpretive, very imaginative, and be able to write and read. Because we had those days where we were sent to our rooms. Our imaginations was real, and we worked it, and it worked for us. On the other hand, we are now looking at the concept, as I said yesterday, of being assumptive. Because everything that we did not know, we end up assuming. Now, I realized up to now, in terms of this week here, that people who lack the ability to have fluent talk, I'm just going to say it that way, or fluent dialogue, usually ends up assuming. Because when you do not ask questions and get answers, you assume an answer that is not there, and eventually assume a behavior that is not even expected or not even desired. So we have to learn how to begin to see that in terms of this dynamic of assumption, we need to realize that it is important for us to develop dialogue, conversation, talk with our children coming through their development in order for them to be able to be very precise, very assertive, and very directed. People today will come into a room, or before I get to the room, let's give you an example. I will ask you, Kenneth, back up a little bit. One of my children, they're in the kitchen helping, and they're cutting tomatoes in slivers. And I will come up and say, why are you doing slivers? And the next thing I'll be getting cubes. And I'll hear, but you thought you wanted the cubes. All I asked was why you are doing slivers. I never said to change. If somebody said to you, oh, what happened to that dress? The next thing you know, you're changing it. Because you assume the person is saying to you they don't like the dress and change it. No, it was a question. What is wrong with the dress? It was a question. Why slivers? It was a question. Why did you put X amount of water? You throw it out. It's a question. So we have not learned to respond to these questions or even statements in terms of conversation. We establish an assumptive position. That means we assume what we think that person is saying, and we adjust to what they have not said. They haven't said anything. They haven't given a directive. It was a question. Now, one of the things that has caused that is the whole concept, again, of interaction. We try to maintain interaction that is not volatile or disruptive or conflictus, if that's a word. I like that word, that's my word, conflictus, of conflict. So that we want to establish that kind of camaraderie and congeniality within the home, among people. So we're always being cautious as to not to tilt or tip the boat or to cause any infraction or to say anything that becomes offensive. So we are always assuming conversations or assuming behaviors to make sure all is well. We're at peace. So if you come near me and I am turning, you move and say, you have enough room? I didn't ask for any room. I didn't ask you to move. But you don't want me to be discomforted, to cause any friction, so you move. I come into a room and the chairs are there. And I go to sit, don't wait, hold on. And why are you moving the cushion? I want to be comfortable. I can create my comfort. Nothing is wrong with the cushion. And therefore, also, we ask several questions to get one answer. Are you hungry? Do you want something to eat? Would you like to have a snack? Do you want chicken? Excuse me. So we have the SCA, common interest, that's multiple choice context. We ask people questions in multiple choice context, assumptive. So I cannot really ask you one question without you expecting to get two others or three others. So when I do ask a question, there's a stall, silence, because you do not know how to work with a single question. Because your background, your nurturing, your socialization is crowded and clouded with a barrage of questions to get one answer. The question was, like the example I used just now, are you hungry? There ought to be a pause after the question mark for the person to whom you're asking to reply. But no. As I said just now, are you hungry? You want something to eat? You eat yet? You want chicken? Wow. So tell me, how am I supposed to be thinking? Let's take it one step at a time. You hungry? Well, I could say yes or no, but before I could say yes or no, you want something to eat? Well, if I am hungry, I will want something to eat. So that's not a question I should be asked. And then I hear, what do you want to eat this? You want some chicken? You are actually telling me that I am hungry and I do want something to eat and I want chicken. But then you say, what's asking you? But you haven't even know if I'm hungry. I'm not hungry. Can I say so? When was I allowed to say so? And I was not hungry when I had all these questions coming at me. So again, we are not willing to entertain the question and then to bring meaning to the question before we interpret the question and then give some application to it. We want to apply it all the time. No, we have to find meaning. That means we are given an opportunity for dialogue. We are creating interaction. We are creating communication within the family dynamic. It is very apparent over the years that there's silence, there is more silence in families than there is conversation. But yet you hear, and I see it in my practice, when most people come, when most couples come, what is the issue? And on their intake form, it is invariably so. Communication. There's always a talk problem. And even if they don't come, people could tell, you could call your friends, he don't talk, she don't talk, he don't talk. There's always a no talk. But do you want to understand that talk has answer and questions in it? Talk has description. Talk has validation. Talk has definitions. Talk has explorations. Talk has... there's so many verbs that can establish talk. But do we want to entertain that? Do we? We want to have a singular mind with a singular thought, with a singular answer that I have all of those. So I have the thought, the question, the answer, everything. So when I do ask if you're hungry, I already know the answer. And I'm using hungry just as an example, but if you ask anything, where are you going? You go on the road? Who are you going by? Allow me to answer. Allow me to verbalize also. Usually, all I can end up saying is one word maybe or none at all. So I am limiting the dynamics of conversation within that relationship, within that house. So today, when you do ask that question, there is silence. Or, don't forget, we have been taught also to make grunts or to shake our heads, so that it is much more so throughout the centuries, from generations, that silence reigns more than talk. Because we are not free to engage dialogue. So I'm helping us today to redefine our family dynamics, especially when it comes to this with talk. Because people want to hear themselves, but they also want to hear you. But are you allowed? So what is important here is to not assume the answers. As a matter of fact, don't have an answer. If you ask a question, don't have an answer, the person to whom you're asking, they have the answer. When they give an answer, it is now your right to clarify that answer. So you could ask another question. What meaneth this? How does it apply to what we are talking about? Give some context. So we are expanding the thought process, but we're also expanding the concept of dialogue. Conversations are not magical. They're not magical. Communication isn't magic. No. It has dynamics of activity, which is TLK. So I don't use the big word communicate, TLK. And you realize why? Because there's a euphoria about the word communication. But talk, it's a frightful word. You mean I have to say something? Yes, you have to say something. Yes, you have to open your mouth and breathe and let some words come out and get some resonance with the airways, and we have a tone. And then it comes across to you and you encode and decode. And that means there is conversation. So we have to learn to practice this. Let me pause here for this. One of the things that I need to also address here is the fear of being told you don't make sense or I don't understand what you're saying. People want to be initially on the bat be understood. They want to know that what they're saying makes sense. They do not want to be questioned about what they're saying. They don't want to be asked why, how, what make it. No. What I say is what I say. Done. Are you following me? No conversation. Ask a question, just answer me now. And we have that generational context that just answer me. I just ask you one simple question. All of that. Yes, it's important for you even to practice listening. Oh yes, we practice it differently. There's something called music. Oh, we can listen to that. We could go to a show and listen to somebody singing. We could go to a show and listen to somebody to drama, have drama. But for us to really share that talk with each other in a family context, I pray tell, it is laborious and it is very exacerbating. And yes, it is very too much for me to do. Oh my goodness, I wish I didn't have that. On pause. So what are we saying now in terms of bringing the two together, bringing peoples into each other? I say peoples. Could I call some nouns? Husband, wife, mother, father, brother, sister, mother, daughter, daughter, father, father, son, cousins. The list goes on. How do we really get there? Now, I can tell you that there are occasions of conversation and dialogue, and it's usually at some family gathering when there are people who are not belonging to that specific home environment who come in and trying to find out what's going on there. So the conversations are usually about, I like your furniture, you change the curtains, what's going on here? Last time I was here, it is not so much about each other unless there is an issue or a concern or some conflict, but generally we talk around and outside of each other when we come together for family times. And even as youth who are now more insular because of the tablet, not medication, but the device, the tablet, because of the phone, people are now insular. They're by themselves. So there is no talk at all. There's only listening. And if you interrupt them or ask a question, they're not even raising their eye towards you. They're still in their phone and they will say, yeah. They may not even know what they've been asked. So we are in a vice here, trying to develop family dynamics, causing a very sensitive aspect in terms of our relating, our interrelating, our bonding, but yet it's absent because there is this issue of fear of being told you're not clear, you're not understood, I don't know what you're talking about. And when we are in an environment when the parent is less educated than the child, that's a problem. And the only time you parents were less educated than your children, it could be within the first 3 years of that child's life. I want you to know that that child is learning rapidly while you have stopped learning. Sorry. Parents stop learning. They want to give what they know from their childhood and from granny childhood, while the child is freshly taking knowledge in the now, gaining daily, yearly, while you still saying, we don't do it so, don't do it so, where you learn that from? Keep it outside. That's not for here. That's the kind of conversations we have. So they cannot, in their learning pattern, growing with new information, they cannot come home and share that with some excitement, because parents will say, hey, well, you think you come with that brain talk, eh? You feel you know more than me, but I is the father or the mother here, you know. Nobody's disputing your roles or your responsibilities, but we have to realize that there is a continuum of education as the child is developing within their own school system, within their peer system. There's both non-formative and formative education. So therefore we have to be careful how we engage their knowledge. Otherwise they keep it to themselves and they implode because they can't find a place to put it to grow. Everything has a seed principle. So who are they going to talk to? So when they do find a friend and they start to share, the parent says, the parent assumes, because of lack of knowledge, who's our child, who's our friend. They carry you astray, taking the lady as, oh my goodness, so the child now is afraid because mommy's saying be careful, so I withdraw. So we are creating that kind of dichotomy, that kind of agony among our children because we don't trust who they're talking to because they don't talk to us. So it's important for us today, in terms of this dynamic, to not be assumptive. Do not assume what you think you know without asking questions, without having that integrated conversation called dialogue. It is very important because we can continue to sit and vie for supremacy, vie for importance within our homes. Parents above, the stratas and substratas, what we call culture and subcultures. So the culture of the parents up here, the culture of the siblings here, and there may be a split in that because the first two may be too old for the other two or the other three. So that's one. So one child who has a gap there becomes elite in itself, while the others may play together. So therefore you may have three sets of strata within your home because of age, but also because of intellectual capacities. And parents seem to win. But the parents don't always win because the child, because of their constant learning, may be much more tolerant in terms of understanding and, of course, having more knowledge to share. We are not to feel that we are below or we are in competition with our children. We send them to learn. It's called going to school. We send them to universities. They have more knowledge than we, therefore let us sit down and talk. I grew up talking with my kids. I learned histories and linguistics and music, all those things, just talking to my children. I learned from them. And then when you hear me talk back, people say, oh, where have you studied? Home with the children. Because I had to gain, I can't go back to a classroom, but they're in the classroom, so they bring their classroom to me. Are you following this? So it really impacts the relations within the home. It really impacts that governance and that rule. So you don't have to be wondering about whether the children respect, how we like to use that R word, or honor you, or they care about you, because you will know because you are hearing their voices, knowing their language, knowing their hearts. So you don't have to be suspicious or assumptive, or assuming when they go outside and you wonder where they is, who they're talking to, how can they, I see they're on the phone for 2 hours, but if I ask her to talk, they can only give me 5 minutes. Because you do not want to hear them. You already have all the answers with all the questions. So I want to encourage you today, as we continue to look at this, to define in terms of assumption. Do not assume. Whether it's between mother and father, husband and wife, siblings, parents and children, do not assume. Do not compete. We want to create interaction, we want to create interrelations, we want to create dialogue that establishes dynamics that are fostering good, healthy relations within the home. Yes, I was silent there for a couple of minutes. How long could I be silent for you to feel discomforted? But I can hear somebody saying, say something now. But you are saying say something, but you're not saying nothing. We're always quick to ask somebody to say, talk to them, but that person who's saying to talk, ask them to talk, they're not talking either. They are waiting for you to talk. And I want you to know that it's important for you not just to say something, but to initiate the conversation, to begin to establish the way forward, to begin to create thought, stimulated minds, motivation here. We're going forward. So we will continue this conversation. We are going to talk. And I want you to practice this week. Understand that your home, your environment called family, that place where you spend a few hours every day before you go to work and after you come home from work, before you go to sleep. Use it wisely. Let's hear the voices. Let's hear what's happening. Do not ask a question and also have the answer. Let's learn to wait. And your children are quite intellectual because you send them to learn. So let there be that concept. May I introduce this quickly here? Learning and teaching. You learn and teach. You share, and so everybody is at that place, are comfortable working together. And don't just say something. Initiate a conversation. Start it. Be the springboard. And I know there's going to be a lot of jumping around and a lot of forwardness, so we can really have that family. So, God bless you as you continue to work out the family perspectives in family dynamics, learning to come together and working together. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the change in your home. I'm excited for the change for tomorrow as we build a generation that is united together and cohesive. God bless you. Dr. Niles saying, so long.